You're listening to episode 26 of Post Production Podcast.
Hello and welcome all you amazing people out there to the Post Production Podcast. Thank you for joining us as we talk about the latest in movie and TV. I'm your host, Mr. Drew, and here with me, of course, is my co-host, Adam.
Yes, I'm back. I'm here.
You are back, and you are here, Adam. Welcome. So, it's going to be a quiet episode. It's going to be a silent episode. It's going to be a mumbling episode.
Yeah, just very, very low key.
So we are going to talk about A Quiet Place.
We are, yes.
Which I think, right off the bat, I have to say, great, brand new cult classic horror movie for the ages.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
I thought it was really, really well done. And it kind of snuck under the radar because I remember the first trailer. We were both really excited, but it didn't seem to be getting a lot of buzz when it first came out, like that first trailer. But then as the kind of marketing campaign kind of ramped up, I think people really caught on. And apparently now it's like the biggest opening for a horror movie ever. So it's insane.
It's definitely deserved. I was hooked after the first trailer.
Oh yeah, I was like, I'm definitely gonna.
I was like, the premise of this is fantastic, and this completely quiet movie, and everyone has to be silent, and the slightest little noise attracts what you don't know what.
Yeah, exactly. I like that they kept it like that. Like even with the latest trailer, like you can, of course it's monsters, right? You don't know where they came from. You don't know what they look like. I'm glad they kept that for the movie.
I'm just going to say spoilers. Because it's a great horror movie.
Yeah, I think
without talking more about it, there's not really a whole lot to say.
Yeah, I think
because it's a quiet movie. There's not much to say. It's a quiet
movie. And our review was in the first 2 minutes of that, which is it's a great movie.
Yeah.
Go see it.
Definitely go see it.
And then you'll see why it's a good movie.
Yeah.
But you can't really talk about this movie without spoiling it. Yeah. So.
And you definitely you hope that you get it if you watch it in a theater. You hope that you get a theater that isn't full of a bunch of douchebags
just
snacking away and talking and checking their phones, because this is a tense, quiet, edge of your seat. Just nail biter.
Yeah, it's super tense. It's a different kind of fear because it's not a lot about jump scares. There were a few jump scares in there, but mostly it's the scenes where you're just dying for someone not to be quiet or not to make a noise.
Right.
You're just like, everyone shut up. Like, you find yourself like holding your breath as the person in the movie is holding their breath while a monster's right behind them. Like, that's, I'd probably die immediately in that world. I really don't know how I could do that, but it's so good, so well done. Well, first of all, John Krasinski, I think this might be his directorial debut. I heard maybe it's not, but
this is, from what I understand, this is his third directorial project.
Well,
first really horror.
Good. Oh, first horror. Okay.
First horror, of course.
It was a first of something.
And which is funny because I heard from either from an interview or from something that he's not really a horror person. He's not a horror guy. He doesn't do the horror genre.
Mm-hmm.
But for being one of his directorial debuts, for being an original screenplay. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And it was the perfect amount of movie for the perfect amount of horror for the right amount of just tension.
Yeah.
There's things that, and I guess we'll talk about a little bit more about in spoilers, but there's things in this movie that you want answered, but then again, you don't really care if they're answered because it doesn't overall concern yourself with what's going to happen.
Yeah, because it's not one of those movies where it's all or nothing. It's the end of the world. The world's already ended, but like it's not like they're going to solve all the problems in this movie of this world. It's just this small movie about this one family and their kind of adventures, and not really adventures, but their story of this post-apocalyptic world, and that's really interesting to me. I like the smaller scale movies because maybe you don't need all the questions answered. Maybe you just want to be dropped into a world. That's why I love things like Black Mirror and stuff like that. You're just dropped into the world. You instantly get what's going on. You don't need all the context.
Yeah. And this was done perfectly.
Yeah.
You didn't need to know anything that was going on outside or in the other part of the world or whatever. You just had the dynamic of this family. And, even though they're in this situation, in this post-apocalyptic kind of, horror fest, and there's these creatures that are attracted to sound, and any sound you make basically just spells your doom.
Yeah.
I mean, you basically just punch your ticket at that point.
Yeah.
But not only are they dealing with all that, but they're also dealing with family dynamics and problems and relationships. And I thought it was it was a great mixture of everything.
Well, that's what I loved about this movie. It's like, it's a post-apocalyptic world, but like that family dynamic, that family conflict and feud that is always there is still there, even in that world where there's sound monsters. It still makes sense. And the family dynamic, I think, worked in the movie's favor because, someone was comparing, what if this was like just a bunch of friends? Would you have cared, as much? But I think it works because that this family is going to stick together even through all of their, their problems that they have.
Yeah.
It's a different dynamic because, and then you bring in kids with that. It's great when you add kids to a world that's supposed to be dead silent. I mean, you're going to be in for some trouble. So,
anything else you want to say before we get into spoilers?
Nah, I think we're probably already in spoilers.
Yeah,
but
probably already in spoilers.
Yeah.
I thought I thought the kids were great in this, and even though. I think you would be like, oh man, if they're at this point and they know that these things are going around, they wouldn't be so bratty, but they're kids, And I thought that there was a perfect amount of rebelliousness and just kind of immaturity.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is a kid, and some things are more important to kids, and they tend to not really think about the serious side of everything all the time.
Yeah. I mean, right off the bat, you realize that. Yeah, their kid just doesn't understand the world. The first scene is really just frightening, and I was not expecting it for some reason, even though like part of it is in the trailer. And of course, we're talking about how the kid got swiped like immediately, right? And you see that shot in like the last or the latest trailer of him running towards the kid who turned on that rocket. And like it's in the trailer, like I'm kind of like, oh, that's crazy. I don't know how this is gonna end, but for some reason I thought it would have ended like
differently. Like he would have gotten saved or something.
Yeah, no. But now I'm looking back and I'm like, well, maybe knowing the creature now, it's like, yeah, like that would definitely not work. Like you have to get swiped. Once you make that noise, it's almost impossible not to get killed.
Yeah.
Especially out in the open like that. It's especially hard. I mean, because you see that guy that just screams and he just kind of stands there, but like he stopped screaming like 10 seconds ago, but the monster knows exactly where it came from.
And that, even though those are two different scenes, they're two just riveting scenes because they show a little bit of the monsters, but it's not. I mean, it wasn't anything really unique. It was sort of it was a lot of different things that we've seen before.
It was. I mean, it looked straight out of very kind of generic kind of design, but
it could have been something out of Stranger Things. It could have been something out of. It looked like a bunch of other movies.
It looked like a sound Demogorgon.
Yeah,
like it definitely looked like the Demogorgon from Stranger Things. I thought it was interesting, the super advanced, like, hearing apparatus, like the ear, and you see it, and it's freaking gross. But no, I mean, I thought that was interesting. And then they're kind of spiky. They're kind of spider-esque, you know.
Yeah, they have like a carapace or some kind of shell on them. But, you know, you get that first scene with the kid and he just gets taken out. And I thought it was brilliant because, you see the whole thing unfolding.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, the kid's, he took the girl gave him the rocket. And then the kid took the batteries and you're going, oh, you fucking idiot. And then, he's walking and it just sucked that his sister was the next one up and she's deaf.
Yeah, she's not realizing.
And then the first thing you see is the shot of her walking and behind her you see the lights on this thing start to go off and you're going, oh no, and then everybody just freezes.
Yeah, and then you see her point of view of her family looking back and they're frightened and then she's like really not knowing what's going on. She turns around, sees the lights, and I loved that they had a deaf character in this movie because it makes it even worse, and actually, the actress that plays that little girl is deaf, so that's pretty cool too.
That's what I thought. Yeah, because later on, she's in a scene. She's like out in the cornfields.
Yeah,
and she's just kind of like she's just like chilling.
Yeah,
and she just stops for a second, and then there's like a creature right behind her, and you're just going, turn the fuck around, man, turn around, and she's like, do.
I mean, that's probably the most frightening thing is living in a world where you can't make any sound, but also you don't know how much sound you're making. That's really crazy to me. That first scene with the kid, super sad, but he had to go.
He had to go. You're done, son. Yeah, no, you don't get it. You're out of here.
Exactly.
You're not with the game plan.
It's you in this world. There's no like second chance. Like it's like that, and then you're done.
Yeah.
Like if you're lucky, like, and you kind of understand, and they have a few like sound traps and stuff like that. Like in reality, it's you have that one chance, and then if you blow it, you're out. It sucks. But anyway, what else did you like? I mean, the cast, Emily Blunt.
I thought the cast was fantastic. I loved. John Krasinski did fantastic. I thought his role, and the way that he portrayed it was really well done. He's playing a father who's trying to save his family and to give his family a chance.
Yeah.
At growing up in this kind of world, and he's got everything going against him. And I thought it was really interesting early on. You don't really see the significance of it, I think, until later, because at one point, in this complex that they live in, there's sort of farm complex where there's, multiple houses, but there's like this silo that he's sitting on top of and he lights this fire. And then you see all these other fires kind of light up around this valley, and you're just kind of going, like, at first I thought, is this like a signal system that he had, like once he lights one, it lights all the others. But then I kind of realized that those are other families that are living around this valley.
Just to know that you're not alone.
Yeah, just to kind of know, hey, we're still here. And then you see later on that most of those fires are gone.
Oh,
because the kids light it later on.
Oh,
and there's only like one other fire lit up, where before you had like all these other fires around the rim of the valley, and they were all gone, which kind of gives you a little bit more of an insight into the finality of this kind of world.
Yeah.
And
that's pretty interesting. I didn't really think about that because like the fireworks scene.
Mm.
Like, how did that affect everyone else? Like, yeah, it saved them, but, like, could that have maybe done something to another family where they were being completely silent? Now there's all these fireworks going off. They have nowhere else to go. Now there's these monsters coming through, and I don't know if that affected them. Maybe that was a part of it, but...
I'm sure at that instance they were probably relieved because, oh, thank God someone else is making noise.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was. I mean, and then you see, the scene later when he's walking with his son, and then you see this glimpse of this old guy standing on the side of the trail, and he's got his dead wife there. And you can see the guy is just like, yeah, I'm done. Like my whole reason for living is lying at my feet and she's dead.
Yeah.
And, there's just that tense moment. He's like, just please don't say anything. Just shut up. And then the guy just starts screaming and you're like, come on, bro.
Like you can avoid it till we left.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like we're just passing through. You had to do it at this moment.
For some people, there's a couple ways to look at that because, for him, his entire, reason for living was dead at his feet. And in another sense, he's just going, you know what? It's useless. We tried, but there's
nothing we can do.
Yeah, there's a finality to what's going to happen. You're going to make a noise and you're going to die. So I might as well get it out of your misery now. Yeah. I'm going to take you all with me.
I'm going to do what I couldn't do for the last however many years, 1 or 2 years, and just scream at the top of my lungs. That's pretty interesting, actually. So, but yeah, just pick a different spot, man.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I thought everything was really good. The movie itself was pretty brisk. It was pretty like close to 90 minutes or so.
Yeah, it was a great pace.
Yeah. I mean, with a movie like that, you don't want to be sitting in silence for 2.5 hours. Like that doesn't work. And the fact that this is a small kind of story, it really lends itself to that time limit. So yeah, I thought it was a really good pacing of the movie. So, and then the fact that we had a birth in this world was insane, and that was one of the biggest things in the trailer. One of the things that kind of let people know like this is going to be tense, and that scene was definitely tense.
Well, I mean, everything leading up to that scene, and then when it was happening, I mean, her pulling up the nail, and then you're looking at it and you're going, she's gonna step, someone's gonna step on it, and sure, I mean, just everything leading up to that, and just I think a lot of people, especially women, maybe even that have had, children and are watching that scene, are just going, holy shit, girl. How are you keeping your mouth shut? Because she was just struggling that whole time. And then as soon as those rockets, started going off, she was just like, yes.
Oh, man. I was impressed with that whole scene. As soon as you see her water break, it's like, oh my God. It's happening. And I love that, like, they make the noise, because she steps on that nail and she, drops a bunch of stuff, makes some noise, and she knows that, like, there's going to be a monster coming. So I have to, let me set this egg timer, I think it was that scene.
Yeah.
But, like, they're smart about that stuff. And, yeah, the fact that, like, yeah, that noise that was so brief, like, the monsters came almost immediately just because of that. And I was kind of impressed that how many times the monsters ended up in their house. Mm-hmm. Like nothing stops them from getting in, right? Like they just turn a corner and they're there. It was pretty insane. And that just made the movie even scarier because like they can just pop up.
Yeah.
Like they don't have to be making a lot of noise getting to the point of where the noise is, but yeah, I thought that was pretty insane.
Well, you had the birth scene, and then, I mean, almost immediately after that, you had another scene where, she's in the basement, and she's chilling with the kid, and there's water pouring in, and she's like, okay, what's going on? And then she kind of gets up, and as soon as she gets up, she notices that there's a creature down there.
That was
and the baby's just laying there, the baby's not covered, and she's just going, oh.
And you don't even know if the baby's there.
Yeah. And you're just going, oh, come on, And then when the creature ducked under the water, I was like, oh, come on, bro. No way.
Seriously?
That was just like, that's too much.
That's cheating.
I was like, oh, that's the worst, because you get that popping out of the water thing that everyone's just like on edge for.
No one wants that. But like,
I mean, just great storytelling.
Yeah,
just so good.
That scene, and it was unexpected too, because she's they made it. They're in the basement. They're cool. She had the baby. He's in his little box. They're good to go. John Krasinski's out somewhere. And then she wakes up and there's water and you don't even know like why. But those are the things that happen. Things just happen. They don't care that you're in a war. Like, and that's what's so like, I love that because like accidents like that happen even in a world where you can't afford to make any noise. Like things fall over and like water will start, flooding into your basement. Like that stuff still happens and you still have to account for that. And those are the unexpected things that make it even worse. But I want to talk about, his story, the father's story, and ultimately his kind of final scene, which I thought was it was sad. Like I really felt the loss in that. I'm not sure if it was completely necessary, just because there was a way that could have been resolved. Because that whole thing, she had her hearing device off for that whole scene. Where if she had just had that on, the creature would have scrambled away in pain.
But she hadn't figured it out by then. All he knew was that his kids needed a chance.
Yeah.
They needed a head start.
Yeah.
And
he did what he had to do. That was, in that moment, that's all he could do. Right? But I love how that scene kind of started when they finally get reunited, and then he's like, all right, get to the truck. And then he goes and reaches for the axe. And then he realizes that the monster is on top, which is something that I didn't think that the monsters would just be hanging out like that, but they were. And that was like the worst, because he takes a swing at it. He still gets clobbered.
Yeah, he just got clobbered.
Yeah.
I liked his sacrifice. I think, I don't know. I would have liked to. Because he dropped the axe and then he said his goodbyes and then he screamed. I don't know if I would have liked him to kind of hold on to the axe and kind of go out swinging, but I get the fact that he dropped the axe so he could use both his hands to say his goodbyes. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think that would have made. Yeah, I think he really just covered all the bases right there, because, he would have to use both hands to say his goodbyes. It was more kind of heartfelt that way. It would be kind of weird if he was, like, trying to hold on to the axe, like the axe, and I said axe, and then, like, doing the sign language and stuff. And then it would be weird if he did the sign language and then went to pick up the axe as he screamed. Like, that just doesn't make sense. So I think it made sense for the movie. I would have liked to see him go out swinging too, but for the movie, for everything, it worked. It worked. So, and then at the very end, like they find a way to kill it, and it's that frequency. I think they kind of beat you over the head with that whiteboard that it kept cutting to. It showed that way too many times, I felt. Did you feel like that? Like, what's the weakness? They kind of were just reminding you every other scene.
Yeah, it was a little bit of it was a little bit kind of forced, but I like the fact that it wasn't an obvious. Like the answer wasn't on the board.
Yeah.
Like he had figured it out and he just hadn't put A, B, and C together. It was just kind of like, hey, this is what we know, this is what we don't know, but we don't know what their weakness is, And she looks at it and then she figures out, oh, hey, this thing is going on with my ear thing. I was fine with that, I'm not going to nitpick about that. Everything else on it was just perfectly well formed for me, so I was fine with it. Is there anything that you didn't like about it?
I can't really think of anything. I feel like the only thing was it ended up being a pretty simple kind of thing at the end. So I was wondering, like, if everyone just had dog whistles, would that work for these things?
I think...
Because it's a high frequency kind of noise.
It's a high frequency noise, but it's more like a feedback noise, because her thing was, it wasn't working. So, when those electronics, they're not working, sometimes they have that feedback sound, and I think that's what it was. So I don't think, and I think a lot of people, if they do their reviews, like, well, why wouldn't anybody ever thought about this beforehand? Well, because if you're using frequencies that do a specific thing or work on a specific scale, then those are frequencies, I guess, that work. Where this is more like it's almost like a mistake. It's almost like a feedback, frequency, because it hurt her just as much as it hurt them. Yeah. So it's not, I don't think I think it was just something that it just happened. Mm-hmm. They just happened upon it, and it actually ended up working. It's nice to come along a movie that's, I think, it's so simple.
It is,
and it was simply done. It was simply manufactured. The story was pretty much simple, but it was just done right. And it turned out to be a fantastic movie. And I think this is going to hold up for a long time.
Exactly.
Because this is going to give people the EBGBs for a while.
Yeah. And I found myself afterward, because later that night after we had seen the movie, I had to go out to my car, and the neighborhood was completely silent. And I go to unlock my car, and it kind of beeps. I just stop, and I'm like,
Yeah,
like I just kind of look around
the farm at that point. Yeah,
I was like, oh and I've heard stuff like that. It's like when people walk out of the movie, and it's like they're in a quiet situation. Someone makes a noise. They're like, "What? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, stop!"
That's funny.
But yeah, yeah, well done. Everyone go see it, of course. See it again. Support original concept movies like this.
Yeah, definitely.
And you know what I heard is this was considered to be in the Cloverfield universe. Like,
I heard that. And,
the script kind of came across them.
I could see how it would have been adapted, or it could have been adapted. I'm glad it wasn't. I'm glad it's a standalone.
I'm glad it's a standalone too. I don't know, because we just talked about the Cloverfield paradox, and that film is kind of divisive, and doesn't make a whole lot of sense to a lot of people. It's about alternate universes. It sets it up as, hey, this Cloverfield universe isn't as connected as you may have liked it to be, but yeah, I'm glad it's not a Cloverfield movie. I don't think it would really make any difference if it was, but at the end of the day, it's not, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. But I mean, for a budget of $17 million and an opening weekend of over $50 million, I mean, kudos, congrats, man.
There it is.
Massive golf clap.
Yeah, seriously. But yeah, pretty good. I think that's about it. Any final thoughts?
No, just more, please.
Yeah, more
like this.
Yeah, more. I need more Quiet Places. I need more Annihilations. I need stuff like this in my life. Yeah. That's what I like. Well, that is about it, guys. We appreciate you listening. And we will see you next week. What do you know what next week is? I have no idea.
I have no clue.
We'll figure it out.
Because we have a few things coming out. Rampage is coming out. Lost in Space is coming out.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna try to see Isle of Dogs, which looks fantastic.
Yep.
So there's definitely a few things.
Well, looking forward to it, and we will see you next week, guys.
Join us again.
Later.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you all so much for listening to Post Production Podcast. If you'd like to reach the show, you can email us any questions or comments at postproductionpod@gmail.com.
You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram. All those links are in the description below.
And if you like this podcast, hit that subscribe button and let us know by leaving a rating and review on iTunes. We would really appreciate it. See you guys next time.